maybe
Like a Twitch
10
streamer.
seconds.
There we go.
All right.
Like a twist.
Indeed.
Hey,
Oh.
good, thanks for the 5-month sub.
Well, I didn't know you could connect YouTube to Zoom. That's kind of sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then we don't have to like download the recording and upload it again.
Fish, thanks
All
for
right.
the $4 donation.
Yeah.
Drop your
Everyone should
Venmo
get-
in the chat. All
Exactly.
right, we're good to go, guys. Take it away.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Intro to Git workshop. I'm Ian.
No, I'm Nikhil.
I'm a sophomore in computer science. And this is, I guess, a beginner workshop meant to give you the basic rundown of what Git is and how to use it in your projects. And especially with everything being online collaboration is really important, obviously, so Git is just that much more useful. So hopefully, regardless of whether you're a beginner or you already know how to use Git, but want like a refresher on certain commands or whatnot, we hope there's going to be something for everyone. So we can get started.
Cool. So we'll just start off by explaining what is Git. So I'm sure like everyone here has definitely heard of it. It's extremely popular, and it's essentially a very, very useful and versatile version control system. So all this means is that every project that you work on is going to be divided into different versions, obviously, right? So anytime you make changes to your code, you're doing it for like some reason, right? Like maybe it's to fix some bug, or maybe it's to implement a new feature. So you can, no worries. So as the first bullet point indicates, like it allows many people to work on the project at once. It allows you to divide your project's timeline into multiple features. It makes it very easy to do all this and identify which version is for like what purpose. So essentially, Git is like works from a command line, or they also have a desktop app that you can use. Although I think most people prefer the command line because of how easy it is to master and use. Like the learning curve is a bit steep in the beginning because it can be confusing to like memorize all the commands. But once you do it like once or twice, it gets super easy, and like you'll never stop. Like you'll start using it for all your personal projects as well. So you can definitely like refer to multiple versions of the code using terminal and etc. And as the like last bullet point says, it's essentially Google Drive for code. Git itself is a version control system, but GitHub, is just one of the multiple different hosts that like you can store code on, and it's the most popular one. And if you have a student account, it's super useful. So it's essentially Google Drive for code that allows you to version out your project. You can see any version at any time, go back to any version at any time. And so in this presentation, we'll explain how you can actually work with GitHub and utilize this to your like most effectively.
Yeah. So why use Git or GitHub? That's a good question. Like we said before in the previous slide, it's essentially a really great way to use version control, and it allows multiple people and I guess like a team to work on like a single code base at once. But it allows you to have multiple branches for keeping different versions of the code, for implementing different functionalities or different parts of the code. And this is more towards the GitHub side. It's meant to kind of be a backup for your computer. And so it's meant to help you store your code on GitHub in case anything happens to your local machine, your computer dies, it gets destroyed, whatever. There's going to be a copy online for you to pull from. And so the final is you can show off your cool projects or find other things that other people are working on that you think are interesting. And there's always a ton of open source projects on GitHub usually that anyone can contribute to. And yeah, so with your GitHub knowledge and Git knowledge, hopefully you guys can start working on some cool things. Okay, so I guess we're gonna get started with the quote unquote demo part of this workshop. Feel free to follow along. If not, you guys can always just follow the instructions on later on.
Yeah, so the first thing we need to do is like, if you don't have one already, you should go to github.com and like make an account there. Preferably use your like student email because I'm not 100% sure if it's free or not. I don't remember, but at least like the UT student emails come with the premium accounts, right? So I'm not sure if every school does that, but it's like definitely use that. And Yeah, so you can, so when you set up your first repository, it makes it very easy to do so, but you can either set it up through the browser or you can set it up on the command line. So you would use, like if you were setting it up on the browser, it allows you to create that repository, which is just like what you're going to call your project, where you're going to store all your project's code. Or you can do it like if you already have code, for example, you can do it locally. You can use this command line command called git init, and this just creates like your own local repository that you can then upload to GitHub later on. So we'll go over the specific commands of how to work with both of these, but like as an overview, you can choose either public or private repositories. And as the name suggests, public means everyone can see it. Private means like you keep it locally. But I think private is a premium feature. It doesn't allow you to create. I think there's either a limit or it just doesn't allow you to create one at all. But yeah, so if you're a student, you can get free private repositories, and private is usually the way to go. And you can like ensure that everything is working and you don't have any security issues, obviously, and then you can like release it to the public.
Yeah, like Nikhil said, you should probably make sure before you release your code to GitHub on public that you don't have anything like API keys or passwords, things like that in your code, because anyone can just see if the code is public. And so I think at the end we can do like a rundown or like a brief demo on all of this stuff, but for now we'll just move on. So yeah, so the second steps for getting started are cloning your repository on the local machine. So you can either go to your computer and go to the desired folder that you want to, I guess, clone your repository on, and you do git clone, and you go to this little green button, and you just copy the link, and you paste that link with the git clone, and it will automatically clone the repository onto your computer. It'll be empty. It'll contain a README, which is like the instructions for the repository, but apart from that, it'll be empty. Or you can just do git init to initialize a local repository, and that repository will be empty. Will just contain whatever you have in your project right now, but it won't be anywhere online until you push it. And it's a little more complicated, but we can go over that in the end if anyone else wants to, I guess, use that aspect. And yeah, for the sake of this demonstration, we're probably going to be using git clone because it's just simpler and show you guys how to use it. But yeah.
Yeah, so now here's like a couple of commands this is where essentially the power of GitHub and Git comes in, which is, being able to check on what changes you're making, being able to store each changes in a different version, which is called a commit, and pushing these commits up to like the remote repository. So essentially there's, as we were mentioning earlier, there's the local repository and the remote repository. So any changes you make initially will be in your local repository, right? But there's no way that GitHub like automatically sees them. You have to like make some sort of, so it's called a push, as we were referring to earlier, when you like take all your local changes in your repository and upload it to GitHub. So these are called this is called pushing. And obviously the opposite action is pulling, which is, whatever's in the remote repository, you pull onto your local machine. And so this is kind of how like the structure of GitHub works. So here's a couple of commands. Let's just go through them really quickly. So the first is git status. This is just like a nice overview command that especially like when you're first getting used to GitHub, it's very like, it gives you a very descriptive message of how everything works, or like what is the status of everything. So it allows you to review all the files that you've changed, all the files that are going to be added to the commit, like have you committed or yet, like where is your commit and relative to like the remote repository, etc. So it gives you a lot of helpful information about like essentially where is your local repository compared to the remote repository, and what files have you changed, what you haven't, etc. So it also gives you like what commands you need to like upload your changes to the commit, like push those changes like to the remote repository, etc. So it's like a just really useful overview command that you can use at any time after you've used like git init. Then you have git pull origin, and then you put in your own branch name. So this just essentially, as I was saying earlier, pulling takes your changes from the remote repository on GitHub and pulls it onto your local machine and updates your files to match the remote repository. So we're gonna go over this later on too, I think, but essentially you can have multiple branches in your repository, and each branch like represents a different version of the code. So the code will, like the base code will fundamentally be the same between two branches, but they could be working on different things. So to allow like someone to work on, to allow people to work on multiple features at once, there's a technique called branching, or like there's like a feature called branches, and we'll go over that more specifically like later on. But essentially for now, just think of it as different versions of the code based on what feature you're working on. And if you use git pull origin, branch name, origin just implies here the remote repository, so like the origin from GitHub, and it allows you to take all those changes made in that branch and pulls it to your local computer. So the one thing that it requires is that your local version needs to be up to date with the remote repository. And usually the default when you do this command is master, which is the master branch. So every repository has this one master branch that is kind of like the base. It's the first one that it's initialized with, and it's the only branch that exists unless you create more. So the master branch is technically, like usually in like corporate settings, it's used as the production, not even corporate settings, like just in regular projects, it's used as the production branch, like where all your finalized code is. And the other branches are usually used as like work in progress, basically. So the next command is git add, or git add, like you can either specify a dot or you can put git add file name. So what this does is if you've made some changes, for example, in these files, it allows you to add these files to the commit. And so you're basically just preparing this file to be sent up, like to be uploaded to the remote repository. So yeah, if you do dot, it adds all the files, in that folder at that point, like, or at that scope, or you can specify a file name, or you can do like a folder name to add everything in that folder, etc. So there's different ways to add files. It's fairly self-explanatory, though. You just specify the file after git add. Then you can finally like take all these files that you've changed when you've done git add with them, and then specify with git commit, and then like -m for, you can pass in a message. So it essentially adds a commit. It takes all those files that you've changed and describes them with a message that you can pass in with the -m commit, with the -m flag, and it adds a commit there locally. So it exists locally on your computer. It doesn't exist yet on the remote repository. And the way to do that is then to do git push origin branch name. So you essentially take all the local changes you made, which are stored as commits, and push them into the branch that you want. And of course, again, the default is master.
Yeah, so a final recap is all the useful commands for push and pull. And so the first one is git clone, which copies the repo and it creates a new one, and it's going to be empty regardless of if you want it. It won't be, it'll like contain like a readme, which is like which contains the instructions for other people to read. And there's git init, which creates a local repository from the command line, and it's based on an existing project or folder in your local machine. And there's git status. And so from git status to git push are going to be commands that you should call every time that you're committing and you're pushing your code to the remote repository. So git status allows you to review all changes made and the status of the commit. And it also kind of shows other changes that other people have made. And so git pull, notice that it doesn't have origin and the branch name. And this is only for repositories with only one branch. So you can just do git pull, and it's implied that it's going to be origin master because there's only one branch, obviously. And this pulls changes made to the remote repo. So if anyone has changed something and push the changes to the remote repository, then this will just pull it and add the changes to your local repository. Git add dot or git add with a file name is going to add the files to the next commit. And git commit with the message is going to create a new commit. And git push is where you're actually going to see the change on GitHub, like the website itself, and it's going to push the change to your desired branch or the master branch. So next we're going to go over branching, I believe.
Yeah. One command I also wanted to add real quick to the like summary was git log. So it's not there on the slideshow, but git log, essentially it allows you to see all the commit, like where the commit hit, what the commit history is. And what that means basically is like all the previous commits that you've done. So it'll show you all the ones that you've pushed like you have locally and you've pushed remotely. And at the it also will show you any local commits, like any local commits you've made, and it'll show them on top of like all the previous commits that are both exist locally and remotely. So it'll show you like essentially the entire history. It'll show you where the head is for both of them, and essentially what the head like implies is like where you are right now in terms of the project. So it'll show you if you have a commit locally that you don't have remotely. It'll show the head locally as that new commit, and it'll show the head remotely like at the near the commit that exists remotely. So git log essentially just allows you to keep track of what you've pushed, what you haven't, what are the commit IDs. Each commit gets assigned a specific unique ID in case you need to revert back to them. So all these things definitely but the main thing that I want to stress, and I'm sure Ian agrees with this, is that no one remembers these commands immediately. You only get them from lots and lots of Googling and using GitHub. Even to this day, I will look up the most basic GitHub commands, Stack Overflow is your friend here. Don't be discouraged from using Git just because the commands are a little complicated, because everyone finds them complicated to start with. It's very common to look up how to initialize repo, or how to add this file, or you're getting some error, what is this error? It's very common to Google all this. So please stick with it, even if it's a bit confusing. It's super useful, and everyone looks this stuff up. No one remembers all these commands by memory unless you've used it over and over. So yeah, just wanted to make that.
Yeah, no, I second that, because I'll just copy and paste an error on the terminal to Google and just figure out what the heck's going on. And
Yeah.
I'll copy and paste a command that everyone says works, and it works, and you have no idea why it works, but it does. But
yeah, exactly.
I guess 4 commands that you should really remember are, I guess 5 is git clone, obviously, git pull, and this could be the cycle every time you want to push and commit. It's going to be git pull, git add, git commit, and git push. So it's just going to be those 4 over and over again, unless something wrong happens, which sometimes it does, and then you just look it up, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'll go over branches. Give me 1 sec, I'm responding to. Okay, sure. So yeah, so branches, as we went over earlier, is another feature that GitHub provides to version out code. So keep in mind that GitHub at its base is a version control system. So it wants to give you as much control over it wants you to be able to split the project as many ways as you want. So not only can you split them by amount of progress, you can also split them by feature. And so you would use branches for this to keep different versions of the code. So what a branch is simply once you've initialized a branch, it'll take all the code in your base branch, or in the branch that you're copying from. So if you have no branches, the only branch that exists is your master branch. So that becomes your base branch by default. It'll take all that code and copy it over. So now you just have 2 different versions of this code existing at the same time, but you can now modify them separately. And so this now the code will end up looking different, right? But essentially you can do this to one branch can be, the master branch can be what your default code is right now that's working, and your other branches will represent features that you're working on right now that aren't maybe completed and finalized, so they can be added to the final code. So that's what you would use branches for. There's also so I'll go over it at the end. We use the git checkout, and then with the B flag, so -B, and this is how you create a new branch. So git checkout -B, and then you specify your branch name, and whatever branch you are on at the time, which by default will be the master branch, becomes your base branch, and it'll take all that code and copy it into a new branch, whatever branch name you give it, and that creates the new branch and switches you over basically. So now you can start working, and anytime you do the git add or git commit, git push, it'll push to this new branch. So yeah, so that's what happens with git with the B flag. But if you just do git checkout, give it a branch name, it'll switch between the branches. So there's an easy way to switch and create new branches and push whatever changes you'd like with to whatever branch you're on. If you do git branch with the A flag, so it's -A, it shows you all the branches that you've made and all the branches that exist for the project. And so usually the reason, the end goal of a branch is to create a feature, right? And once you're done with the feature, now you want to add this to the main code. you can initiate something that's called a pull request. And so what a pull request is you can, I'm not sure if you can create one from the command line. Ian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. I don't think there's a way to do that.
I haven't used it like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
I've never done it like that either.
GitHub is really nice.
Yeah, so on GitHub, usually it's very easy to initiate a pull request. And what a pull request says basically is, I'd like to merge all the code in one branch to another one. So it can be any two branches, but very often it's like some random branch. It can be like, working feature like V1 or something. And you want to merge that into master because it's completed. So when you create a pull request, it'll show everyone that, is an admin of that repository. It'll show everyone like the changes that you've made, what code is different. And especially in corporate settings, there'll then be like a code review process. So the pull request will just exist there open. It won't be merged until someone approves it. And someone can leave comments on the code and be like, what does this do? Like this can be implemented more efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. So there'll be some sort of code review process by the administrator of that, or like whoever's managing that repository. And finally, when all the edits are to their like satisfaction, then they'll finally approve it. And when they approve it, the old branch will essentially become useless, and all the code that's different between the old branch and like the master branch will get merged. It'll get joined. So this is essentially a way to like, create features and join them when necessary. So these are all, as the question asks, like there's a question that asks if these are all done in the terminal. These are all done in the terminal, yes. That's why like, it's every single one of these commands, and even the commands we went over earlier, like git clone, those are all done in the terminal as well. So yeah, pull requests can get messy. It is a bit tough to master initially, but the GitHub UI is very easy and makes it very easy to learn and like to see how you would do these things. And there's lots and lots of resources written for these. So if you ever need like a reference again, it's very easy to look something up. So it takes a lot of Googling to master this stuff.
Someone in the chat just asked, can the administrator compare each change and pick which change to use? Yes and no, in the way that you can. It's like a very I guess clean layout that GitHub gives you for each pull request to show you all the changes that are made or are going to be made in the merge, and you can comment on them. I don't think you can choose like pick and choose like which commits to keep and change, but you can tell the person that created the pull request to change these things before you approve it. But I don't think you can pick and choose because it's one commit and you can't really pick and choose like changes to the code.
Yeah, when you compare two branches, it's always to the last commit made in those branches. So keep in mind that each branch has its own commit history. You can like push commits to it. Commits are just like, you can make them for any branch, any project. And yeah, they just imply like, they just imply like they just stick to each branch. They're not like only for one branch or anything.
Someone also asked if it's, I think you need git bash. These commands are all for like Linux/Unix based computers, but I think Windows has like a slightly different syntax, if I'm not mistaken. But to kind of move on, pull requests can get very messy. If you're in luck, and it's usually this case, it will merge automatically with no conflicts. But then there'll be times where you need to override some changes. So let's say two versions of the branch, two branches have conflicting commits, and you need to like choose which lines to keep. And it's a very long process that I've honestly dealt with maybe once or twice. And so that's just, And so just a kind of brief overview, git pull origin and the branch name is how you push and pull multiple branches. Now that we have multiple branches, we can't really use git pull by itself unless you specify with a command that I can't remember right now to set the upstream branch.
It's a git push, and then there's a flag called set upstream to
upstream or something.
So it's the first time you push, you can just be like, I want you to use this branch every time, and like there's a flag for it. It's called hyphen set upstream 2, I think, set hyphen upstream hyphen 2. Like pretty sure it's that. But obviously, like you would look this stuff up normally just to make sure you get it right. But yeah.
And if you don't want to do that, honestly don't even bother with doing that. You just do git pull origin, and then say the branch name is called feature one. You just do git pull origin feature one to pull from the branch from the remote repository, and git push origin, and then the branch name to push to the branch in the remote repository. So then you'll see your changes with commit and everything. Git add, git commit, those things are needed, but git push origin and the branch name is what you need to see the actual changes to the branch on GitHub. And yeah, I can take this one because, but for good practices for collaboration and using Git, so merge your branch only when you've gotten your code approved by others. This is a really important thing. I got yelled at for not doing that and just like approving because I thought it was okay. But yeah, like having like a second hand, just like kind of reading through the code and reading through your changes is really, really helpful in kind of spotting mistakes, like potential bugs, or just things that you haven't even seen before or didn't even think about. And so how to do that is we'll show you later is you can add collaborators on GitHub to kind of inspect your code before they approve the merge request. And there's like a green check mark when they approve it. Then you can merge the branches. How to resolve merge conflicts. Oh, okay, that's a tough one. There's like Git command to use it. We can go over it in the end if you want. It's like using rebase and like but yeah.
Essentially, the larger idea is that you want to go through each line individually. Like you'll go through each conflicting line individually with the command called rebase, and it'll tell you, like, it'll ask you if you use a like environment, some like VS Code, it makes it very simple because it gives you like a graphical interface to do this. But essentially, you click on you use something called rebase, and you'll have to go through the file and individually pick, like, do I want to use like this version of the code, or do I want to use the version of the code from like a different commit or like a some different commit. So you pick basically at every point, and then you finally then your code will be good. So that's how you'd resolve a merge conflict usually. I also just wanted to answer the other questions, Ian, that we've been getting a couple. So there's one, what's the difference between a pull request and git push? So git push, like I said in the chat, it's to push your local commit. So whatever local changes you've committed using the git commit, you've created one commit with the message, and you can use that to push to like the remote branch that you've set up. So so setup stream. Sorry, I think that might be the flag. So you guys can see here, right? Like, yeah. Oh, dash U just sets the upstream as well. Yeah, that works too. So essentially when you push for the first time, so to finish answering the other question, sorry for getting confusing about that, but to answer the other question, so git push, you take your local commit, push the remote branch that you've set up, and you can use this flag that Ian just showed, the -u flag, to make sure that it pushes to that branch every time. And a pull request, which you create on GitHub, the website itself, is a request to merge the two, like to any two branches. So usually this is used from like a different branch to master, because you want to take the new feature code and push it into like production, or like whatever the main code is. So pull request is used to like merge two branches. Git push is to take your local commits and push to a branch. Could be any branch. That's the difference. And what is the command if you're going to be referring to the same branch over and over? So yeah, the first time you push, you say -u, and this will take whatever like remote and branch, like whatever you specify. Usually it'll be like origin, and then like, whatever branch you're pushing to. If it by default it's master, and it'll set that as the upstream for everything. So every time you do a git push from then on, you'll be pushing to that branch over and over. So I highly suggest you do that the first time. It's just super convenient, because it won't be very likely that you're going to be pushing to multiple branches like that often. You'll usually do all your work on like one branch. But yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
So,
and I guess well said. So continue. You should really commit often. This helps you keep versions of the code in case something goes wrong. You mess up, you accidentally save something you shouldn't have. you delete a file, GitHub keeps like a list, and like Nikhil said earlier, Git log keeps a list of all the commits that you've made. It's very extensive, and there's a command that I also forgot to go back to these commits and
This
to
is
go back
Git.
to
I think
that
it's
version of the
Git
code.
reset or something.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, I really stress this enough. It's merge often. So create a branch, and then when you're done with the branch, merge it and then close it, and like move on to a different branch, and only work in one branch at a time, because that just makes it easier. This avoids headaches for you and the code reviewer. It avoids headaches with merging, because there is likely to be less merge conflicts, because there's not as many moving pieces, and it saves the time for the code reviewer to do long code review. So merging often adds incremental changes to the master branch and the production branch, which is really, really helpful. And you don't want to be having a branch for like multiple months, because then it makes it harder for you and the code reviewer.
So sorry, before you go on real quick, two things. One is that command that we were talking about earlier is git revert. So if you do git revert, you can specify like what, if you want to go back to a commit. So like you can just basically delete like the past kind of.
Yeah.
You're at the head of the branch and you want to go back to a commit you made like maybe 2 days ago. You can just specify, each one gets an ID, and you can just revert back to it, and it'll delete all the progress you made. And if you can basically push that upstream, and what that does is it'll do the same thing like on the remote. So that's why you'll hear terms like, so sorry if it's a bit confusing when we say terms like upstream. That's kind of like the hierarchy of how GitHub works. You tend to push things upstream and pull things downstream. So you'll see that like in the like FAQs and the help like websites for GitHub as well. And one other thing is, yeah, so we're talking about how you need to merge often. So when at my internship last summer, we would merge every week basically. All the code would be pushed like on. That's why I didn't say a company name or anything, but and I was just trying to give an example, like, in a corporate setting, it would basically happen every week, and it would get every you guys are distracting me, stop telling me I'm flexing. So but essentially the point is, all the changes in a even in corporate settings are done every week, like every 2 weeks. So you always want to be like just as fast, if not faster. Yeah.
I guess now we can go on to Q&A and kind of any other questions you guys have. And then with the time remaining, we can do, I think we have time for both. I can just kind of give like a quick tutorial and just show the commands on like a terminal or something, and then you can lead the Git game.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this Mercury version controlling. To be totally honest with you, I never really heard of it. And I'm sure like it can work as well, but definitely like GitHub is one of the most popular. I think like I use it in like some of my I even use it in some of my classes and stuff. So yeah. I would just stick with Git. I don't know. I just lots and lots of articles are written for it. And
I really wouldn't use Dropbox.
Can you even do that? I don't even know.
I don't really know. Well,
I don't think. Wait, let's see.
I really wouldn't use Dropbox. That's like using Google Drive for code.
I see. So yeah. I guess that I guess you can. I'm looking at it. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I'm seeing that actually when I look at it, some people think it works. So I mean, I guess yeah, go for it. I've never done it personally, but I guess if you can figure out how to do it, then doesn't seem. I don't think there should be a problem. But yeah.
Yeah, but I guess one thing that Git really has going for it is that Git is used by pretty much every company, every organization. Everyone that uses software uses Git. GitHub, like there's a ton of open source projects on GitHub, and a lot of what you're going to be doing in an internship revolves around like pushing changes to GitHub. And yeah, I think there's like a secure version of GitHub for like government contractors and like people dealing with like privacy and data, but um,
Yeah.
uh,
Is
I don't
there?
think
Yeah.
it's like
Okay.
I haven't used it, so I don't really know, but I just use GitHub because it's easier.
Yeah, you can. So you can make a private repository public. That's yeah. I mean, that's actually what I think like a lot of people do like for classes. Like for example, in this like elective I'm taking, we're supposed to use GitHub to store all our code, and then I think people like just like show like they use it as like an example of the code they worked on, so they just make it public after the class is over.
Yeah, but yeah, I really recommend don't make your like class code public, then you're gonna get in trouble like really bad. So yeah, and like I'm sure like I've heard like if you keep your class code on a public repository even after you're like out of the class, you can like still get in trouble because
Yeah.
you're like
I wouldn't.
knowingly just keep it private. Yeah, so now we can move on to like a quick little demo, and we can focus on the Git game afterwards. So I can try to make like a term, like a, let's see. I don't know how screen sharing works, but
we can see. I can see this. So
okay. Because I have VS Code on a different.
We can see VS Code too.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, so I'll just go to my GitHub, create a new repository, call it sample repo, and I'll make it private, and then I'll add a README that's pretty much just it's like the file where you can write like a description for a project.
I don't know if it's just me. I can't see.
Oh.
Yeah, I can't see the menu.
It might be because it's private.
While you're doing Nikhil, could you explain like if you were a team that were like trying to start putting your project on GitHub and you've never used it before, like what is like the first couple steps you would do for like each person on that team?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, everyone make sure that you have a GitHub account, and like you have Git downloaded. So it's a command line tool, right? So you have to make sure that everyone has it on their terminal, or I mean, they can even use the GitHub like desktop app. I've never used it personally. I don't think it's like it gets really convenient if you're like good at terminal. So I would just use that. So then the next step for these people, like next step for the team would be everyone like create a repository and share it with everyone. So add everyone as collaborators. So you can just do that from the GitHub website, use the private repository, etc. And you can just add people. So the next step a team would do is, let's see, you'd add the repo, you have all the people as collaborators, everyone should, pull it locally. So now everyone has a local copy of the code, and people can work on like whatever changes they're making and use the sequence of commands that we told everyone about, git add, git commit, git push. And one thing you have to make sure is that you always have the most updated version of the code. So make sure you use git pull a lot. And there's a way way to pull, with that, like when you assign tasks for people, like they should create, new branches and stuff like we were talking about, use the branch functionality there, and then everyone can implement whatever features they're working on and push and use the git add, git commit, git push like sequence that we were talking about, and use pull requests like we were talking about earlier as well to merge the code together, and that way you can have like a completed project along with all your progress documented on GitHub. So that could be a little confusing, but as long as you remember the general sequence, looking up the commands is totally common. Like people do it all the time. So you don't have to like have the commands memorized, but just remember the sequence of stuff and the different features that GitHub has, like branches and stuff. So yeah.
So can you guys see my screen now, or?
Yeah, we can. Okay. I can see it.
Is it like on the create a new repository screen?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So yeah, I just like clicked on, you just go on GitHub, you log in, you go to new, you select the name, so sample, it's just like, let's call it sample. I'll choose to make it public, private. And then you add a README, which is kind of this, like a description for your project, and you create the repository. And it'll take a bit. And you click this little, it's empty right now apart from the README. And you go to code, you press this, you copy the link, and you go to VS Code. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so you just go to git clone, and then you just paste the link, and it will, so now just ls, and you do cd, and now the sample is, I'm pointing at the screen, but you guys can't see that. Now sample is there, and you just do cd sample, and now you're in the repository, and the README is there. And let's say I want to create a new file.
Real quick, don't want to interrupt, but README, you guys may not know what that is. A README is just like, so if you go back to the GitHub real quick, yeah, so you guys see how like there's just a sample printed there. So that's actually the README file. So that'll be the first file that you'll always see when you click on your like GitHub repository on Chrome or like whatever, like when you go on it on the website. So it's just so the MD is a markdown file. And that means it uses markdown syntax to you're essentially supposed to provide a description of what your project is, how you run it, etc. in your README. So the README is just like a description. So you would edit it locally. You use markdown syntax, just a type of formatting syntax. And yeah, so that's what the README is supposed to mean. So it's usually the first file that you create to create a repository. Yeah, just wanted to explain what that was.
I honestly don't remember the syntax. I just like copy and paste it from my other repositories.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It can be it can be generic, but.
And so for now, I guess we'll just do like a simple adding like a file, and then we'll move on to the Git game. So you just want to create a new file, call it something.py, and it's created. You write something, create hello. You save that, and now you can see there's the file. You just do git add all.
Actually, yeah. Wait, don't. Can you show them git status real quick?
Oh yeah.
Just to see what it looks like.
Git status, and
so yeah, you can see what branch you're on. You can see if it's up to date, and obviously neither branches have anything right now, so you can do like on branch main, branch is up to date. Then it tells you untracked files and the command that you have to use. So essentially, there's only one file right now that isn't being added, which is something.py. So then it tells you can use git add. So it literally tells you what command as well. That's why I like git status a lot. And at the bottom, it'll give you like a summary. So if like we'll do git status after you add the file again, Ian. But essentially, right now it says nothing added to commit, but untracked files present, meaning that it's just like as it says, there's one file that we haven't added yet, and it tells you like we should use git add. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So, what was I? Oh yeah, so just git status. Yeah, like Nikhil said, it's it just kind of shows like a little summary, and then you just want to do git add, and you can do either this, just like add like the file name itself, or just add all. This just makes it easier, and just do git commit. And you just want to
do git status again. Do git status right after. So now you see it looks different, right? So now you can remove the files from the commit again using their command. So git restore, -- stage, and then you can pass in the file, and that allows you to remove or unstage. It's called unstage basically from the commit. So branch is up to date again, etc., and then changes to be committed. So they're ready to be committed. They're not committed yet, and so we have to do that next.
Yeah.
You'd use the command we talked about earlier, which is git commit -m and then a message.
Cool. Yeah. So then you just want to do git commit and then your message, my first commit. And now it shows you how many files are changed, like the number of like insertions. So there's only one insertion, obviously, because I only wrote one print statement. And then I think something different. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be something different.
It just like tells you that's ahead of the main branch in the remote repo by one commit. And so you want to git push.
Sorry. Real quick, do git log as well. just to show them
yeah.
the commit history. So you guys see in git log how there's an initial commit that we made, from the browser, which was just adding the README file. And you can see right next to that commit, like there's an ID, right? And next to the ID, it says origin /main and origin/head. So what this is talking about is it basically shows you what the last commit is on origin, which is what the head thing is talking about. And like that's the origins head, so that's the remote head. That's what it is. That's where it's at on the browser, because the browser yet doesn't know that we have another commit to push, right? We haven't pushed yet. And it also talks about how like the commit is on the commit is on the main branch, so that's why it says origin/main. But now if you look at the commit above that, so by the way, you can also see there's a unique ID, right? So this is the unique ID you would use to revert or like refer to this commit if you needed to in a command. And above, there's a new commit that says first commit, right? The message is there. And there's one tag next to it that says head, and it points to main. And this essentially says that locally, that's where your head is. Like that's where the last commit you've made is. And obviously it's one commit ahead because we've made one locally that we haven't pushed yet. So like the git status command said, we have to git push it to make sure that it shows up on a remote repository as well. So yeah, and make sure you use the -u flag.
Okay, yeah. So just to kind of clarify, so right now I'm on the main branch. So I think we can just do git push, right? Just do git push origin master. Git push origin master will just push it to the master branch, and
but you
wait. Oh boy.
Can you zoom in a little?
Can I?
Yeah, so this is actually a great example as to how Git can be very frustrating because like
it's no longer called master, it's called main. That's interesting. Yeah, so they changed like a couple of months ago, they changed like master branch to main branch. I guess for connotations.
Right for
I heard about that. But yes, I think if you just to git push with one branch, it automatically pushes to main, I believe.
Actually, I was just trying that. It should work.
But yeah, so every time we mention master, just think of the main branch.
Sorry about that. It's been called master forever, so it's very easy to refer to like that. But the idea is the exact same. You would just literally just use the word main instead. And you can see like the question asked, git push. Since we talked about how the defaults are origin and the main branch, so it just pushed because since we only have one branch, it just pushes it to main. It tells you it takes all the objects, pushes them, tells you and how you can see that there's a commit ID. So it tells you it shows you the original commit ID and it says main to main. So you pushed it from the main branch locally to the main branch remotely. So if we go to the website, it should probably have it, right?
Yeah, so if you go to the website and you refresh the page, now we have the code with the first commit message, and then there's something.py with the print statement.
Yeah. And you can see in the top left, the branches. Just hover over the branches real quick. That's where you would see all the branches. And like that's like if you start at you can create a branch from the UI. So all these things that we were talking about from the command line, you can easily do from the not easily, you can do it from the website as well, but usually it's very inconvenient. So we wouldn't suggest it. It's just way easier to use the commands and practice them. So yeah, that's where you would look at the branches though, if we had another branch. And
And so as a final, I guess, thing, we can create a new branch. So we can just git branch A to CL branches, and then git checkout, and the -b option, and then new branch, a feature / something, I don't know. Something.
Something.
And then I'm already in that new branch. And so I can add another one that says print by. No, the form for attendance doesn't work. Oh,
Yeah, Didi, I
Anyway,
don't know.
I don't know how to solve that. So you just do git add.
I'll message. I'll make sure that the attendance form works. Let me
Git commit branch, then git push, and then you do origin, and then you do. Oh, it's like you have to do git push, like something upstream, and then git
or
push
just type in
origin.
U, right? Yeah,
And then the origin, and then the branch name you want, which is what was it? Feature slash something. And so this will push it and create a new remote branch. If you do git branch A, you can see that feature dash something. The green code is the local repository, the local branch, and so it's only contained in the local version of your Git repository. And it isn't until you do push upstream that you actually create a new branch on GitHub itself. And so now you go to GitHub, and now it says git feature slash something dash slash something has recent pushes less than a minute ago, and now there's a new branch, and there's a new branch, and now you can notice that this has a commit called branch that has the print statement, whereas the main branch, main branch is no longer has that statement. And so you can.
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That was pretty much.
Oh, so if you go back to the web page real quick, you can also see that right above it says feature something had recent pushes 1 minute ago, compare and pull requests. So usually you would just click on that, and like if you click on that real quick.
I guess we can back up with that.
Yeah. So you can see like about it says base main. It's probably because I'm not a collaborator, but
yeah.
Like,
it's also. Well, you have to like go to settings and stuff.
Yeah, it's all good. But essentially, like you can see, like it shows you what base you want to merge into, or what branch you want to merge into, which is main, and you want to compare feature something, and comparing basically means like what do you want to merge? So you can talk like all this like you're supposed to describe what changes you made, etc. Essentially, you would add a reviewer. Ideally, the reviewer would look at it, and you can like look at the pull request and approve it. And if it gets approved, then the code gets merged automatically. So it's like a very, very convenient code review feature, essentially. Yeah.
And so it says here, this branch has no conflicts with the base branch, which is what you want to see. And that means you can just press the button and it will automatically merge it for you. Sometimes it's going to be like, oh, like there's conflicts and you have to like fix it yourself, which is a pain. And you just go to files, change, and you can see all the files that will be changed. So in something.py, there will be a new statement called by. And yeah, so this is how you keep track of all the pull requests, and you're committing into main from feature something. So when this merge is complete, main will now have feature slash all the components of feature slash something. So you shouldn't do this, but since it's like my own GitHub repo, you can just do merge request, and that's my email. So yeah, and you can just select successfully merged, and now you can successfully just delete the branch and not have to worry about anything. And now I believe you can go to here. Now the main branch contains the commit that says bye, and the main branch is now updated with all the updates from feature slash something, and feature slash something is gone from the remote repository.
Yeah. So
and
one last thing I wanted to say is that you will very often run into like history problems, or like, and by history problem I mean like you'll run into like merge conflicts. So there'll be some error for why like you can't combine two branches because something happened like in some commit a long time ago. All these errors are very common. They're very like they may be hard to fix, but the fix exists, I promise, and it doesn't require you to like delete anything. So it may take a bit of Googling and like patience as you try to understand what the error message is, but everyone has gotten like every error message a lot, and there'll be a lot of forums and discussions about it on Stack Overflow and stuff. So like, don't stress is what I'm saying. Like it can be a bit annoying at times, especially when your project gets a bit more complicated. But if you're a beginner, like working on a maybe this is your first hackathon and you'd like to use Git, I would highly recommend it. Like, it's a very, very convenient way to make sure that you're versioning out your project really well. It just leads to better coding practices in general. Yeah.
It's because kind of like finalize everything. I just did, you checked out the main repository, the main branch, and you just pulled, and now it contains, you're on the main branch now, and now it contains the by statement. And if you just do git branch /a to see all comments, you can see that the branch is still there for the local repository. So you can just do git branch /t for delete, and then feature something, and now the branch is gone. And now the only branch remaining on the local machine is the main branch. And now, yeah, that's just how you create branches, you merge, and then you delete them. So any questions, comments, concerns, criticism?
But I mean, in general, though, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at any point. We'll be more than happy to help and assist. But if there's any right now, please go for it. Otherwise, I know it's or it should be almost 10, right? Yeah. So yeah, as we get to the end of the workshop, thanks so much everyone for listening and asking questions. I hope this was somewhat clear, or if not, I hope it gives you an intro to Git that you can now use to kind of look stuff up otherwise and figure out how to work with GitHub. But yeah, we'd love to answer any questions that you guys have. But if not, I hope it's been informative. And definitely leverage Git from now on in your projects.
And we'll be here for a few more minutes to answer any questions that people have. But if not, good luck with your projects.
Yeah.
Make sure to get some sleep.
Absolutely.
This is how teachers must feel. Everyone just dips the class.
Watching all the names go down.
Vanish. Tell me, Ian, did you realize you were sharing your screen that entire time? When you
I didn't know. Nikhil told me.
I saw that and I was like, if you're trying to show them on a browser result, I was like, okay, that works, I guess. But I don't know why you're going in incognito or anything.
I was like low-key trying to just kind of look up the answer because I didn't know.
No. But I thought you were doing that on purpose. You wanted to show them from a reputed source or something. So I was like, oh, that's cool. That's fine.
No, I was just looking it up because I didn't know for myself.
That was pretty funny.
I forgot.
I looked at Mercurial version control and
Dude, I was what is that?
I have no idea what that is.
I have no idea.
Whatever.
I've heard there's a secure version of Git, but I've never used it. It's
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, and he also asked about Dropbox. I was like, wow, I've literally never heard of it. But I guess people do it and it works. So I think they just they add their their Dropbox folder to the repository or something. So it automatically updates on Dropbox as well.
I can see how that works, but what?
Does Dropbox do version control?
What
the hell?
I don't know. That's what I got from the 20 seconds of Googling it.
Yeah.
Just to figure out what that is.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was about to tell I was trying to communicate to Ian yo, I can look stuff up, don't worry. Answer it.
I didn't know. I was do it discreetly so no one notices.
You didn't do anything to him. You just went to that one dude's personal website. So I was what
Oh, I don't know. It was just because because he used some version of GitHub.
Okay.
Secure.
Oh, okay.
I swear he did something with that. So
I thought you looked up one of the attendees, which is why I was oh shit.
No, that's fucking weird.
Or an organizer.
Still alive on
I mean, if it was an organizer, it would have been fine. But if it was an attendee, I would have been
That's so weird. No, 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 no. Gosh.
Oh, but no, great workshop. That went very smoothly. We have a
It went
couple.
longer than I thought it would, but
Yeah,
But no, that was good. I was afraid it wouldn't be long enough. So
yeah, me too.
like I didn't want to do the git game at all. Like that's kind
Really?
of like we did that in Convergent. Like it's super useful, but it would be
We're still live, by
incredibly
the way,
hard to coordinate.
so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but
Live.
it would have been
Anyway,
yeah. But I was gonna say it's incredibly hard to coordinate. Like it's super useful to teach, obviously, and like I would have been fine coordinating it, but like when we did it in Convergent for the first time, like we did it in person, so it would have been like a lot easier to manage because the people just walked around and looked at screens. Here I was wondering like if we'd have to make breakout rooms or something, but it would have been fine. It's just like I was like, I hope we can do a demo or something that takes up the whole time, not a game.
Yeah.
And it worked out. So
yeah.
Anyway, are we
Are you good? Or?
Yeah, we can post the slides later on the Discord. I think some
Okay.
people asked for that. So we'll post the recording if you're still watching for some reason.
Yeah, I totally forgot they like changed it to main instead of master. I was like, what is going on?